for the Climate Control Center. We're gonna need a little precipitation.
Spike, what for? Look, whatever you're planning won't work. Okay, who's the head honcho here?
Huh? Who are you?
Me? Why, I'm just a gun-toting weather girl.
What are you doing here? This is a climate control station. What do you want from us?
I want you to make it rain.
What are you doing here?
This is a climate control station.
Faye, in for
The Climate Control Center.
We're gonna need a little precipitation.
I originally had intended to do a video about current events in America and all the Epstein stuff and stuff that people said years ago. Like, if that stuff ever comes out about how the world's really run and that it's, you know, based on the blood of children and all that kind of thing, then that's when they would just really go for it and, you know, make a whole bunch of catastrophes everywhere. But there's the weather that's happened, Florida, and if Florida gets too cold, then that's wrecking food supply. You know, mentioning it over since lockdowns, there's been like the destruction of probably by now 300 food processing plants. You know, billions missing in Minnesota. So let's forget about that and fight about ICE. And setting up all these ICE places all over in the country, which is happening. They're setting them all up. And the martial law, and, you know, Elon Musk saying, here's a car, you can't buy it. Bill Gates in the island, and all these things. And, you know, the President Trump's obviously evil. And, you know, if you still want to look at Charlie Kirk's stuff, and that he's married to a dude, and the transvestigations of Erica Kirk and all this stuff. And I was going to talk about all those things, but I kind of just did. Really, what this episode is going to be about is something that's criterion for your sanity, and that is, oddly enough, the power of prayer. I thought, what's an important thing about God? So the word that comes to mind is criterion. What's a criterion thing about God? Well, it'd be his commandments. And what Jesus came and told us through the New Testament was, love God above all else. A new commandment I give unto thee, love each other as I have loved you. So love God above all else and love your neighbor as yourself. But if you want to do that, you got to pray. So the criterion thing is something you hear me do repeatedly in my videos, which is I tell you to pray. It's super important. And if you want to love God above all else, you have to develop a personal relationship with him, and you have to pray to God. Like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying, like, you need to do this. You look at all the things, we are the world, WHIRLED world. You know, they're trying to mix us up, trying to get people to fight each other, the divide and conquer strategy. It's the one that they always use. Once you get a person isolated and alone, then you can affect them in such a way that they become consumed with pride. And one of the things that I don't think Christians are going to argue with me about, unless they just want to argue, and I don't argue, I learned that from Mildred Norman, is pride is the deadliest of the 7 sins. So how most often are people destroyed? Through pride. You can see it pretty clearly, obviously, with women in TikToks, how if a woman's pretty at all, like, what happened to the epidemic? What happened? There's like an epidemic of women pointing their ass at the camera to the point where it's now influenced dating profiles. And they're just like pointing their ass at you, like, here's me, here's my ass, it's my profile picture. And, you know, I also, other videos that I have scheduled to see if I get to them, where I just sit down and talk about what I think about, you know, women being the weaker sex. Why are they doing this Gnostic, you know, like lifting up the woman? Yes, it's to draw attention away from Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's 3 masculine presences, and none of them are women. But, you know, and how do we get here, though? We get here out of the womb of our mothers, and that's, you know, clearly a woman. I know they want to change things so that we're born in hatcheries and everybody's mom is Lenina. That's from Huxley's Brave New World, from like the 1920s. So they plan these things for a long time. And one of the things that I say, if you're a subscriber to this channel, is, or if you just watch them regularly and you're not a subscriber, is that it's a divide and conquer strategy. Isolate, keep people scared and angry and intimidated, and and this Gnostic stuff. If it's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, then we're going to exalt women, and we're going to tell men, don't be in the image and likeness of your Creator, which is 3 masculine presences. I don't know how else to quantify it right now. I just want to keep going. Maybe you want to be a chick. Maybe you want to be more like a woman. So they know that, we know how it was in the Garden of Eden. Okay, Adam was there, he obeyed. Then Eve was made from a rib from Adam. So, only begotten Son of the Maker of all things. And we have Adam in the garden, who was set apart from the rest of the world and the people who are already here. Or the people who are here. Because, when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, other people are there. So it's who are the people that are in the world that, when Cain goes out and builds, is it Edom? When he goes out and he builds, and he goes into the land of Nod and all these things. And so there's other people here, other people of the 6th day, or whatever you believe. So Adam was set apart, okay? And Eve is made from him. So it's almost like, God made Adam, and then from Adam, Eve is, very specifically. So what happened when Eve showed up? They got kicked out of the garden because instead of listening to God, and this is in the Bible, instead of listening to God, he said, you listen to your wife. Why don't you listen to me? I told you not to. And then she says, here you go. And then he's like looking at her, whatever was behind that. And he's like, okay. And then he has the forbidden knowledge. And Eve was deceived by the serpent. So, and then God says after that, and I have like multiple videos on this queued up into August, where repeatedly I keep saying, like, the husband is the head of his wife. God established the order of things between the men and the women. And it's also in ICEy when you can see that times changed, and he's talking about what it was like. ICEy is telling you what it's like in his time, and that there's like a raising up of women, and things are out of order. Women and children, it's out of order with the way that God established things. And when they get kicked out of the garden and go back to Garden of Eden, God says the husband shall be the head of his wife, which means you're in charge. Don't forget that. Now get out. And so you can see why there's all this Gnostic stuff in our movies and TV shows about exalting the woman above man, because it's out of order it's out of the natural order of things. And this is not the episode I intended to do. What I really wanted to do was talk about the power of prayer. So I'll get back to that, but I guess I'm going to have to do another video on the power of prayer. I guess this video has just become about dynamics between men and women. You see how they're messing them up? You see how easily influenced women are? Look at what a transparent thing it is, especially now today more than ever. The stigma that comes along with being a woman involved with making dirty videos. Videos that show up on the hub, where you can see women being penetrated, or they're at home on a cam and they're doing it to themselves and putting bits of plastic or glass inside their bodies, and silicone or whatever, sand, whatever they do, and produce. And it's pretty gross, and it's hard to come back from, and yet they keep doing it. Like, women keep being influenced to do these things, and a lot of times it is under the influence of men. They take a young woman, and then there's a man who's a devious man, and then he exploits her for all the world. And we see how guys came in, gay men like Andrew Tate, and all the red pill stuff, where they're talking about how women are trash, and you can, the guy's claim to fame is, well, two things. One, that he's clearly gay, he's homosexual, And I say all porn always leads to gay. Do you remember that video? It's probably still up on Rumble. It seems like I'm jumping around, but all these things are related. So Andrew Tate is a figure. I know he got beat up in a boxing match or whatever because he didn't work on his cardio or whatever. Anyway, Andrew Tate's claim to fame is turning out women, and he told you how to do it. He told young men, get a stable of OnlyFans girls, and then you can see other guys doing these same things. And there was this thing, which is probably like a three-letter agency, op, or the military or whatever, to try and devalue women as mothers, and the super important value that a woman has. I mean, for peace on earth, we need God. But another thing that would help, like our leaders aren't leading us to anywhere good. So you need an example of who to be and who to find. So boys and girls need an example of who to be like, a man or a woman. Good examples of these things. And we don't get them from role models from sports or music or movies. And we need an example of who to find. You know, I want to find, how to find a good woman, how to find a good man. And that's for perpetuation of the species. So, because this planet was made for us, and now they tell us about climate change and how that we don't matter and that we're monkeys. And instead of telling us that maybe man devolved into monkeys, they're telling us that we came from monkeys, which I don't believe. I think there's, separate things. Could there be some kind of degradation of man into beasts? I think we see that happening. We can do it mentally. It doesn't have to be a physical changes in appearance. It doesn't have to be like that guy that wrote that Behold the Proton. Remember that guy? Did you ever hear about the Behold the Proton guy? He's a nut. And he would talk about the devolution of man and how you can see these degenerative traits or whatever, and like Planet of the Apes kind of stuff or whatever. Which again is probably some kind of French propaganda piece that whenever that was writ. The devolution of man, where the apes take over the planet. So women, men fight and are willing to die for women, right? That's what we're told with marriage. Like, find the woman that you'd be willing to lay down your life for. Like, that's in the Bible. So the forces of darkness, let's just call Satan and evil and demons and jinn and Oni and all these things all over the world, whatever name you can give for demons. Let's call them forces of darkness. So they know this, and they know the powerful influence of women on men, and that men and women were made for each other. So what we can see happening is the most powerful drive that there is, men and women towards each other. And I would say what's more powerful than that? A sincere want for God. But a lot of people have had God obscured, and instead what's there, physical, material, the attraction between men and women, and let's just distort that and pervert that as many ways as possible to break down society so that they can make people into the kind of people that will, like World Economic Forum has threatened, make us live in a pod, eat the bugs, own nothing, and love it. And you can see, like, worldwide, all these horrible things that have been done to break down society, like Australian schools having, like a litter box to tell the kid, if you want to be a kitty cat, you can go shit in a litter box in the corner of the classroom. Did anybody ever do that? So it's just the idea to keep us divided. Authorship for New World Order website that I saw back in probably before 2004 said a series of small-scale conflicts at all levels at all times, and I would add to that even within inside oneself. For years, BetterHelp.com had already been exposed as a scam, where there was no accreditation, or they weren't licensed therapists. They were just people that they hired, like when I used to hire people for a psychic hotline and just tell them how to be psychics, which is just all bunkum. So years ago, BetterHelp.com was exposed as a scam where the people didn't have the training or the teaching to become therapists. Maybe now BetterHelp.com, which still exists. I just saw it as a sponsor on a podcast. I'm like, I thought we got rid of them. So probably what they're doing is they have some kind of BetterHelp training thing so that legally you can be, through them, like a certified counselor, because I think that there's like some... I worked at a place, it was a New Age place, and they offered healing therapy, and then somebody was not pleased with the healing therapy because it was New Age lies. They said, you're not legally, you can't be a therapist. So they're like, you know what, we counsel people now, because legally, without paperwork, we can counsel you. Just counsel. So I think maybe they're doing something like that with BetterHelp. Forgive my ignorance for not understanding, but the point is, they want us to think that there's something wrong with us and that we should talk to somebody. This leads us to stuff like George Lucas's THX 1138, where in the future they show you a picture of Jesus, and then you confess to the state all your sins and anything that's troubling you, you just confess it to the AI, and the AI says, here's all the things and keywords and key phrases, and then that helps them to mold and shape you. And George Lucas made THX 1138 in like 1978, I think. It was right before he did Star Wars, right? And is that not live in the pod, eat the bugs, own nothing, and love it? I mean, in THX 1138, Bobby Duvall goes to the store and he buys some kind of like 3D printed piece of shit. It's just like a shape, and then he buys it and he takes it home and throws it away, because that's what buying stuff is. Like, you want to buy something, object, okay, well, don't put any value or attachments to it because you own nothing in the future. So he goes to the store and he buys some kind, I'm trying to find the word that I want. He buys this shape or whatever, and then he takes it home and throws it away. And he lives with a woman, but they don't have sex. And then when they do start having sex, they can't live together anymore, and she winds up in a bunch of jars. And he gets to see his child in a jar, because that's not allowed in the future. Is that not live in a pod, eat the bugs, and own nothing? So, when George Lucas is making... yeah, I'm going to talk about Star Wars. So when George Lucas made the prequels to Star Wars, and they're like, look, these movies are made for little kids. He's telling us they're made for little kids. And he has a black man talking like a sharecropper. Yes, a master. No, master. Me clean up for you real good. And he has all these weird themes. He also has these really long, boring trade agreements. Like, I remember seeing Simpsons episodes where they made fun of the Star Wars prequels, where it's just like trade agreements. And it's very boring and dry, like, why is it in the movies? Well, he's explaining to you stuff that we're living now. Like, so George, say whatever you will, has always been a little bit ahead of the curve. It's Luke Skywalker. He's one of the Anakim Skywalker. He was a privy to knowledge and an understanding of things that was put into his movies. It wasn't just Joseph Campbell, Power of Myth. Like, this guy knows about, like, I guess I would say, like, J.R.R. Tolkien levels of this shit, where it's like goes way deeper. Like, people love Lord of the Rings, but it goes way deeper than the surface stuff, and that's being exposed now. In the last days, all will be revealed. So you have George Lucas revealing stuff. They're like, wait a minute, he's called Skywalker. He doesn't know who his dad is. His dad's a fallen angel. His name is Anakin Skywalker. He chooses evil, but then he sets things right in the end. And all this symbolism that's in Star Wars, and like he's hanging out with a Bigfoot. I mean, that was my original Star Wars experience. Don't worry, we'll bring it back to men and women shit. In Star Wars, you already had this strong, independent female Princess Leia character, but it was a different time, and he didn't know where he was going with the story, so Luke Skywalker's making out with his sister. Was that an accident, or was it on purpose? They say he just didn't have the stories known, but if you look at George Lucas's other scripts, he has some weird ideas. that Indiana Jones, Marion Ravenwood, was 12 years old when Indiana Jones deflowered her. And that kind of still stays in the movie, although she doesn't age herself. So George Lucas is into all kinds of weird shit. And probably before he even got to make THX 1138 about the future that they want to put us into, where everybody lives underground, by the way. Do you ever see other people's videos about how much shit already exists underground, how they're still continuing to develop underground things for us to live in? Whoever gets to live there. The Matrix is about this. They're living in the pod, they're eating the bugs, they don't own anything, and they're online all the time. That's live in the pod, eat the bugs, own nothing. That's the Matrix movies. And where's that happen? Underground. Where's Zion? Underground. And then they go to surface and everything's ruined. Even though God says in the Bible there won't be a crack in the earth for you guys to hide from me, which I believe. Now, was that talking about what he already did before he established his millennial reign, or is he talking about that for us now again? Probably both. So before George Lucas was famous, he was one of the guys filming the Altamont Music Festival where the Rolling Stones were performing Sympathy for the Devil, and the Hells Angels bikers killed a man. And he's oh, hi, I'm George, I'm recording. And he's recording the murder. And then he makes Star Wars. Maybe it was actually, then he makes THX 11. Then he makes Star Wars. Where does he make American Graffiti? Because that was the thing he made first. He's like, shows that he was like a very interesting filmmaker with American Graffiti. And then, did you ever see that? Don't watch American Graffiti 2, it sucks. But the first one is very, like, maybe it will bring back nostalgia for the 50s for you or something. Where they go car cruising, and it's right after World War II, and America's on top of the world because of weapons, because we made weapons or something. So you can see the degradation of things. How easily women are susceptible to doing like the nastiest shit. I mean, also, kind of men and women both like sex. I really didn't have to convince any woman that I've ever lain with to do anything. A lot of times things were like, somebody wants you to like them, and they want to do a thing. So they'll find ways to like spice it up. I don't know how else to put it. And you're like, oh, you want to do that now? And they make it seem like it was your idea, but really they wanted you to do those things. And I've even in my own small life, I've met boundaries where, a woman's telling me, well, I want this and this and this, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. And she's like, yeah, nobody wants to do that. And it's like, yeah, because it goes against basic impulses of men that we don't want to do those abusive things, even though some women want those things done. And now you can see through being online that women will tell you the most intimate, disgusting details about themselves, and it makes you go, ugh. And yes, that's by design. We've been manipulated. Edward Bernays a long time ago figured out a lot of tricks for manipulating people. And when he first saw television, the cathode tube and what was possible with that, he's like, that's how we get to people. That's how we program people. We show them fantasies and we get them to imitate these things. It's one of the most basic things about children is they see the thing and then they imitate that thing. And the example that I've been using for years that reflects to children or the teenagers is those Fast and the Furious movies came out and sort of created car culture that wasn't there to the level that it is now. And it really brought in this car culture stuff. And people go see the Fast and Furious movies and they started setting up all their little street racing groups. I mean, that stuff was there, but not like it has become. Like it advanced what we call the car culture stuff. And it was just because of those movies. It was because people saw those Fast and those Furious movies and drove like idiots. And there's a lot of people that are dead because of it. I'm talking about America. I mean, I've been to other countries and you've seen videos yourself probably of how crazy people drive in other countries, and that's just how they go. Like the crazy Turkish streets. Do you ever see the Turkish driving videos? I've been there. It's crazy. When I was there, I was told it was one of the most common causes of death was on the road, and I was told that while we were driving somewhere, and I was like, great. So movies have an influence on us. The princess programming, whatever you call it, whoever came up with the princess programming, stuff. Did you ever see the Jamie Hanshaw? I have it. The Jamie Hanshaw book about the princess programming. Actually, I have the old book that has the expurgated chapter that shouldn't be in there. This idea of princess programming, we can see how women have grown up with it, how it hasn't served them well, and destroying society so that they can't be princesses anymore. That instead they'll become, part of a harem, and that women are kind of down with being in harems, and it's not good. And you know that not everybody can have a harem. Also, superhero stuff, like getting little boys to play like Thor, which is a surrogate for Satan, Superman. Again, these are all fallen angel characters. So getting children to imitate the stories of the old gods, not of God, not to be, there's no kids going around LARPing, cosplaying to be Jesus when they're little boys. Like, no, they didn't make it, Maybe they made an animated David movie that apparently is doing okay. I just making cartoons and Bible stuff, Veggie Tales. I hate all that stuff. I mean, maybe does that get kids to take the Bible seriously? Jesus was a cucumber man? I don't think so. You know what I mean? A sacrifice of food, he's born in a food trough. That I get, but you know what I mean? Like VeggieTales and like animated biblical things. Did they ever animate the story of Jesus in the style of the Byzantine Empire, in the style of Byzantium or whatever? I don't know. But that's not an influence on children's playing. How many kids do you know that grew up playing Noah's Ark? Trying to round up the neighborhood animals into the swing set or whatever. It's not happening. Into the Little Tykes plastic play place or whatever. No, we're given bad examples of who to be and who to find. Looking into athletes, you saw the corruption of the athletes pretty transparently with the 19 kids, the Gen Xers that grew up with, like Charles Barkley, who was a douche, and Dennis Rodman, who was just all that, and the tattoos and all that shit, and just trying to be wild child or whatever. And then, Michael Jordan was like, people, and like, why is the guy playing? I know it's all through basketball examples, but you can go through sports and realize that, these guys went around banging all the girls in your neighborhood and then leaving, and steroids, and these are not examples for children how to be. Now that time has gone on, we can see that Michael Jordan wasn't a good example for kids either, even though he tried to have like a clean image. He's a bad loser, the gambling, it's not, these guys aren't what we thought. But, they weren't projecting good images either. Maybe if you go back further in the past, like Reggie Jackson, I'll use baseball, maybe that was like, what do you get to grow up with on Reggie Jackson? Not much. He played baseball. He's really good at it. I don't know. Did Reggie Jackson manage to get out of here with his reputation untarnished? Maybe. But he was like a big thing. I remember when Reggie Jackson. Do you remember Reggie Jackson? You're old enough to remember him? My analytics tells me all my subscribers are in their 50s to 60s, 100%, and it's an expletive deleted lie. Because I looked at my subscribers, and there's more like people that use the icons are showing younger people, younger men, and then there's women peppered in there too. So, analytics, my analytics lie to me. So, where am I? So we need an example of who to be and who to find, which would help peace on earth for all mankind. But we're not being led that way. We have the people, richest people in the world, the wealthy elite, whose fortune shaped the fates of nations. And the fact of the matter is that underneath it all, they worship Satan. And they're not leading us in a good direction. And generationally, you can look at those famous families that are known for their wealth, and they're not leading mankind in a good direction. If you look at what they've done historically throughout the generations, these, robber baron families or whatever you want to call them, it's always been leading mankind astray, like even to the point where when they decided what hertz frequencies that record albums would be put at, they could be put at one that's harmonic and beneficial to the growth and development of man. Or they could make records be pressed all at a discordant frequency so that it would always cause trouble. And they're like, make that the standard, the one that causes trouble. And so you know the names of these bad families, right? Don't you know what I'm talking about, child? So it's not a new thing that the richest people in the world are evil. And what did Jesus say about that? He said it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle, which isn't possible, unless you plastinize it and turn the whole camel into thread, then you can thread a camel through a needle, which is kind of gross. But that's not easy. It's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for the rich man to get into heaven. And look at what the rich people have done. Are they leading mankind in a better direction? No, they're on the World Economic Forum, these assholes, these fillators of Satan's phallus, spitting out the shells of beetles that are in his seed, scare beetles probably. They're telling us you'll live in a pod, you'll eat the bugs, you'll own nothing, and you'll love it, and it's disgusting. And it's not true. Just because they plan these things for so long doesn't mean that they're going to get their way. I mean, ultimately, we know that they have lost, but also God said, He's coming with a sword, to tear stuff up. So how are we going to make it without prayer? It's like the most important thing. And which is originally what I wanted to talk about, but then I kind of meandered over into dynamics and things about men and women. But that is, what are we? We're a planet of men and women, and this place was made for us, but it's been corrupted. We've been corrupted, and the order of things has been messed up. And it's not the first time this has happened. It's happened in the past, and that's part of what I butchered up front. But that's what ICEy was talking about, how the order of things was mixed up. I guess maybe I want to say sort of this idolatry of children that we've done, but also we know that they're the ones that are sacrificed. Aleister Crowley stuff, Age of Horus, the conquering infant, the idea of making us selfish, and suspended adolescence and juvenile and selfishness. Not growing up, not developing properly, and then making all kinds of excuses for it, like neurodivergent and on the spectrum, off the charts on the spectrum. You can be whatever you want. Transhumanism, trans being a prefix that means crossing over from being human. And then Joe Bozo gets on his podcast and says, we're not even going to be human anymore, or whatever he said. I saw a clip in a video shitting on Rogan. Because he's a bad guy. And sorry. You haven't lived unless you had a psychedelic experience. So, and he's really not. I mean, he has a bad history of kind of making women cry. It's part of, if you've heard enough about Joe Rogan stuff. These people have an influence on our lives. And we have all these influencers online. And it's all very selfish. I'm trying to think of that part of the Bible where it says something like in the last days they'll become worshippers of themselves and they'll exalt themselves. Where's that? Forgive me for not remembering. But that is in the Bible. It's like, hey, here's a heads up when it's getting bad. It's people are going to say that they're the best. And look at how we've been influenced by rap and hip hop, and that's taken its toll worldwide, where what is it to be an MC? It's a master of ceremonies. And what are the most common, I would dare say predominant themes of like rap and hip hop? It's, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I have all the girls, I have all the money, I have all the worldly things, women are whores to me, I just turn them out. I'm better than you, and I'm better than all those other guys. And it's just about a series of rhyming about how they're better than everybody else and better than you, and they got it all to the point where they lied. They made that whole, you know, what wing of the military or whatever was MTV. I heard MTV's dead. They did MTV Cribs, and in time, a lot of the rappers, maybe even the majority of rappers and hip hop guys that were on Cribs said, yeah, those weren't our houses. MTV said, we want to project your lifestyle, so rent these Hollywood mansions and rent the cars, and then tell them that that's your lifestyle. And then they did that, and then Redman's like, fuck that, I'm not doing that. And then he's like, here's where I live, kind of slob. He doesn't even hide that he doesn't even hide his porno collection that's right in front of his TV, and he sleeps on a mattress on the floor. And that's like a guy that, you know, in terms of rap and hip hop guys, that people respected him maybe more than a lot of the other rappers and hip hop guys. And they're all lying to you and telling you all this stuff is theirs and none of it's theirs because MTV told them to. Because MTV did ops on the youth. Here's how we want you to think about your life and your future. Maybe you want to be some kind of a criminal. Maybe you want to get in some kind of, maybe, you know, like telling, I don't know what else you call it, influencing everyone to be like urban youths. Hey, which is leading us to you live in a pod, eat the bugs and know nothing. And how do you get through all that? Drugs. Maybe you want to sell drugs, destroying families, bringing in drugs, whether it's crack or meth, for whatever color the people are. It's just about tearing up families, all of them. Because if you can ruin a family, then you create isolated bio units, or what did Brzezinski call them, robotoids. Then you can just have, you can just control people and make them do whatever you want, which would be living in a pod, eating the bugs, own nothing, love it. I mean, if you look at the Matrix movie with Keanu Reeves and all that, everybody's in their own little pod. They don't get to interact with each other except for online, and online everybody has avatars, because when you wake up you're bald and you're living in a tube of goo, and we're eating each other like Soylent Green from Charlton Heston, Soylent Green. And the stories of Brave New World in 1984 by George Orwell have the same themes. Love doesn't win in the end. John the Savage says Lenin is nuts, he gives up on love and he hangs himself. And Winston and Julie are tortured till they don't love each other anymore, and they love and worship the system. They love Big Brother, not each other anymore. Winston fears rats eating his face more than he loves Julia. Do you get it? And then whatever they did to Julia, did they ever reveal in that? I can't remember anymore what it was that broke Julia. And then the story ends where they love Big Brother, and love doesn't win. Like, that's the whole point of 1984, is that two people wanted to love each other and the world said no way, and then they break them. And then the story ends once they're broken. And there's no secret at the end, like, well, they really loved, they secretly still love each other. No, it's just like, forget about love. In the future, they want us to just be controlled, and love is a thing that people are willing to lay down their lives for, so wreck it. And that's what you can see happening, and that's all stuff between men and women. How am I going to title this video? I don't know. I did videos. I think I'm going to re-upload them. I put them out in the weekend because it was Ariel Tollhouse, at Ariel Tollhouse, left a comment that inspired like 3 videos in a row, so I just put them out Saturday. I read the comments on like Friday, so then or Saturday maybe, and I put the videos out Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or something like that. I just put them out like 3 in a row. It's like, boom, put them out, get them out there. And they didn't get a lot of views. So I think I'm going to put those videos up again, because it's like, it does tie into another video that I'm going to do, where I just talk about the power of prayer and how important it is to pray. Because if you want to love God above all else, you have to know the guy, which is 1, reading the Bible, and 2, praying to him. I dare even say that praying to God is more important than being able to remember parts of the Bible. If you read the Bible and you really want to know God, you're going to remember stuff, even if you can't say, this is from, Luke 18, the tenacious widow or whatever. If you can't remember where in the Bible, like, wait, there's a thing from Jeremiah, but I think it's from Jeremiah. Just if you remember I'm just saying it's more important that you would pray to God, maybe even so than you have the Bible memorized. But also keep in the past that it was very important to have the Bible memorized because people were living, and there was no TV back then also. But people were living in times where like, well, if I don't have the book, I have to know this, I have to remember it, I have to make it a part of me. And I do think it's, crucial to read the Bible, but I say it's criterion to pray to God. And his name is Jesus Christ. And we need to pray to God, and we need to not get black-pilled. No pills, I would say. And then like with the God pill, it's still a pill. No pills. Pray to God. It's the most important thing. You want to love God above all else. You actually have to develop a relationship with him. And you can only go so deep in your relationship with God if you don't read his word. So I would say most important thing, pray to God, because even the pagan Sibyls who called upon the unknown God prophesied, because God gave them that to prophecy, because he hadn't revealed his plan yet, and yet here were people still seeking out the one true God, our unfathomable Father. They didn't know about his only begotten Son and his Holy Spirit. Or maybe in some way there was, I hesitate to say this, but maybe in some way like his Holy Spirit reached through to these people, because again, pagan Sibyls, they prophesied and to the unknown God, God above all else, and God heard them. So prayer was there, prayer to God before the word, before it was written down, with everything that's the Old Testament contents, and with the New Testament, the final covenant. Before that was written down, there was people seeking God, because we're by our natures worshiping beings made to worship. We're made by design to seek him out and find him. So pray to God, it's the most important thing. And also keep in mind that men and women were made for each other, whether you get a partner or not. And people want to tell you all kinds of things about what love's supposed to be like. And it's been distorted, and we've let that influence us to, I mean, maybe not you or me, but a lot of people have let, I mean, I've not been unaffected by this. I used to make videos talking about like, here's 34 red flag traits in women, and I make it seem like a phone conversation because it's kind of funny to me, but also truth. I believe those things. And yeah, it's just part of a divide and conquer strategy. And men and women were made for each other, and there's an order of things, and you can see that order being flipped upside down. Why do all the movies have the strong, independent woman character? And like Stranger Things is the example I use, because I have like a Stranger Things playlist. The Stranger Things, the finale of it, women did everything, men stood in the background, and the only man that had any authority was the guy who was the LGBT kid, the kid that they kept telling while he was growing up, are you gay? Are you gay? Are you gay? And then the kid's like, maybe he's, I think they MK Ultra'd the kid into being gay. So who has any, regency or power in the Stranger Things finale? Only the gay kid, because he's more feminine. They have feminized him. So this is all this Gnostic stuff, and also like the like this idea of not men and women, not good over evil, but a balance and putting together of these things, this Gnostic union idea, which is evil and distorted and not true. And there's nothing in the past, this, whatever you want to call it, this androgyny, hermaphrodite thing, that's all in Stranger Things too. But all these movies, why do all the movies and video games suck? Because they put the message in, where it's like basically men stand down and women do everything. And women, you're not even allowed to look at anymore, not supposed to be beautiful. Tomb Raider can't have tits. All the female characters have to have an ugly face and have to be the perfect world baby that's a blend of all the races. And then that's who you can be. That's, and who's playing video games? Mostly dudes. Women are playing video games only by proxy of men. Like, oh, guys like video games, boys like video games, well then we're gonna play them. Whether it's pervert, women knowing that they're making, their money off the backs of children or old, lonely people, or whoever in between, young man or whatever. It's all exploitative. They're exploiting themselves, and we're all just exploiting each other, and it's from basic human drives of sex and the want to pair up. and you can see the damage that's done. And then the women kind of whore themselves out, and then, you know, surprise, surprise, nobody wants them anymore, and they bear that shame. So they have to find more creative ways to whore themselves out that the men will go along with. Women are getting rid of their tattoos. They're getting rid of their tattoos because they find out, surprise, surprise, what's trending now is that guys don't like a woman with graffiti all over her body. It looks like hell. Even though I know some guys like that. They want the defiled woman, temple whore, whatever. So they just want to confuse us. It's divide and conquer strategy, series of small-scale conflicts at all times, at all levels, even within inside oneself. And that's where they want us. They want us looking in the mirror. They want narcissism. They you know, it was the buzzword of the year. It was like 2018 or something. Was it one of the dictionaries said, Webster's or something, said our word of the year is narcissism. People still use it. What do they use? They use the word narcissism, dystopia. I'm trying to think of one of the other words that's used all the time. But I hear narcissism and dystopia used just like very commonly. Like it's just assumed. Like if everybody's making videos, what you know, everyone should know what I think about everything, and that's how we get attention. So people get attention, and then they become like even more starved and ravenous for this attention, and it becomes like some kind of greed within inside ourselves where we just can't get enough. And you know, then again, a lot of people just don't make videos, and maybe their videos would be really good, but they're discouraged from doing it because nobody, you know, will listen to me, or they don't want to turn into the monsters that they see. You know, when somebody gets a lot of hits or whatever, and all the risk. You know, it's like the band. There's like a band, and they have their small origins, and they become a big hit, and then the band gets split up, and the people get messed up on sex and drugs and rock and roll and all that stuff, and then you get to see how they're spit out on the other side. VH1 used to do those VH1 behind the music. Here's how they came up from, you know, they were a nice band of kids from wherever they came from, and then they kicked somebody out of their band, which is part of the devil's deal. And then they became famous, and then the whole thing fell apart when the whole world was given to them and everybody loved them, and they turned into monsters, and then everybody hated them. Like everybody loved Justin Bieber as a kid. Then he grew up and they hated him, and he hated his fans, and you see videos of him spitting on his fans. And now the guy's like a skeleton, and they used him up, and he probably had to do gay shit, because there's no way that's right, oral or anal, that's how you get into the club, and that's for men and women both. So you get to see people get chewed up and then spit out, and you know, it's horrible. And one of the easiest ways to ruin a woman is just get them invested in pornography. The whole thing was starting OnlyFans, and then actually maybe getting a couple bucks for it from some people. I think the average person makes, probably now it's even less, making like $130 a month or something. That's not enough to live on. And you're showing your most intimate parts. It's supposed to be for your husband. Yeah, it's supposed to be for him, and then the whole world sees it, and then guys are like, oh, I don't want that to be my wife. Everybody's seen it, and they've seen what she can do and see how she rides. It's awful. That's something that's supposed to be discovered by husbands and wives together. Like the sanctity of marriage is supposed to develop that bonding. The bonding that comes from sex is a deeply personal, intimate relationship. That bonding's supposed to last a lifetime. But when you're giving it away for free, as everybody watching this already knows, it has no value anymore. And it's hard to, you know, like really get that intimacy or to trust anyone. And that's part of what they did to us, the divide and conquer strategy. And it's propagandized to us endlessly, whether we say it to each other or whether we watch it in movies and TV shows. And now we're on some kind of precipice where what's possible with AI is already being exploited. People are sending each other dirty stuff. And I remember years ago, I thought the AI pornography had already been perfected years ago. I saw a video of Margot Robbie doing some nasty stuff, and I was like, that's obviously not her. And it was convincing, like in 2016 or 17, like it was believable. Or they send, you know, weird Obama videos and stuff like oh, okay, that I believe. That's probably a real video, him having that done to him or whatever. And it was convincing years ago. So now, forget it. People are just like whipping it up, and they're using it as part of the strategy of like, well, we don't want people to have, you know, access to water, so we're gonna, hey, AI is using your water. So even though the oceans are vast and it's mostly water on the planet, or whatever shape it is, whatever you believe, that it's mostly water with land because the earth was flooded, and that well, we're going to take your water away too. We're going to wreck it. We're going to put all kinds of stuff in your water so that you're receptive to I don't know, 8G or whatever, 5G, 6G, 8G. We want to affect the ions, negative and positive ions. Do you know this, that they've known for years, where like when there's a lot of positive ions, that's bad. It's like HIV positive means bad. So when there's a lot of positive ions, people go crazy in the atmosphere. And when there's negative ions, then this is what we want. That's why they make all hair dryers used to be positive ion hair dryers. So you're pointing a gun that blows hot air at your head that's bad for you. It's like, you know, drying your hair out and frying your brain. So they made these negative ion hair dryers so that you weren't pointing positive ions at your head every time you dried your hair. So they know about the positive and negative ions. So now we have all this technology. We have extremely low frequency technology. We have ELF tech. Look, they had the they had the extremely low frequency stuff. Lucille Ball talked about it. She was driving past this place, and because of the fillings in her teeth, metal fillings in her teeth, she was picking up Japanese spy receptions, and that busted the whole thing open. In 1985, there was a Val Kilmer movie called Real Genius, where there was a college of genius level kids, and they were using voice of God technology to talk to their enemy's fillings in his head. So the guy thinks he's hearing the voice of God in his head, but really they're using stuff that they had like right after World War II with Lucille Ball. So we have that stuff today. We have 5G. We have Stephen King writes Cell. Do you ever see the John Cusack, Samuel Jackson movie where cell phone towers put out a frequency that makes people go crazy? Like George Romero's The Crazy. George Romero gave us the zombie movies. He also did a movie called The Crazies where people go crazy and they start preying upon each other. And then we have Stephen King's Cell, which is where people frequency is emitted from their cell phones and it turns people into zombies. Then there's Netflix and Sandra Bullock's Bird Box. So there's all these things they're bombarding us with. How are you going to make it without praying to God? If anything's going to block all this stuff that they're throwing at us, you need to start praying to God and develop a relationship with Him. We're commanded by God to do this. If you really want weaponized technology against the forces of darkness and all this constant onslaught of evil shit they're doing to us, you need to develop that relationship with God. You need to start praying to God, because His most important commandments are love God above all else. It makes everything else possible. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's what's most important to Him. And how are you going to do that if you're not praying to God and reading the Bible? So get on it. So, you know, I keep saying this because I mean it. And if the Bible doesn't stick with you, even sometimes when I read the Bible, I'm like, yeah, I know the story of the vineyard and the wine pressers and all this stuff, and they killed his son. I know that already. But there's a whole lot of other stuff in the Bible too. I'm not belittling that story. I'm just saying it does something to us when we read it. It's His word. So even if it's something we read over and over again, go back to parts of the Bible you're less familiar with. I could definitely stand to read more of the Old Testament. But I'm into spiritual warfare a lot. That'd be another video. Even when I sleep, I get attacked all the time. My sleep is not so good. And by the time I go to bed at night, I'm so tired I can't even pray right. And I know that that's, maybe it's a bold claim to make, I'm making it. This is spiritual warfare in your waking life. They don't want you to pray. If you're really somebody who prays, even if the demons don't know what it is and they can't hear you praying to God, like what it is that you're praying, and I'm not saying they can't hear you, but when you're praying to God and you're really consistent and persistent about it, expect spiritual warfare. So they try and get you so worn out and so tired so that you can't pray. So what's another thing that drives home to me the power and urgency of prayer that I hope I'm driving home to you, is that it's super, super important. That's why I say it's a criterion. If you want to love God above all else, you can't do it without praying to Him. I mean, it's one thing to do what he tells you to do and obey, but also we're supposed to pray to God. You know that one of the things that I can't not pray every time I pray, if I have time to pray, I'm always putting in there, please Lord, I pray that their plans to make us live in a pod, eat the bugs, own nothing, never sees fruition. I pray that you put cracks and tears in their plans, destroy Agenda 2030, destroy Agenda 2050, I'm praying constantly about all these things, destroy what they're trying to do in America with ICE, I pray against, destroy that fake state that they call, that really is a cabal of Satan, that is a synagogue of Satan, and they're not at all what they say. And don't let them kill people, you know what I mean? Like, they want to make these enemies out of what should be our brothers and sisters in Christ, and God wants to get as many of us as possible, no matter what race, creed, or color we may have now. He wants people to turn to Him. And I want what He wants because I know that He knows best. I'm not perfect, but I know who is. And I have access to the most advanced technology that's ever going to be made available, and it's a direct access to the creator and maker of all things, and this is God, and His name is Jesus Christ. If you feel better saying Yeshua or Messiah or whatever that makes you feel better, know that when people do exorcisms and they call out for help in their dreams, they call out Jesus' name. I know the demons use Jesus, they say His name too, but it's just to let us know who God is. When people are screaming at Allahu Akbars down into hell when they're having a near-death experience, they call out for Jesus for help, and then they come back and they do something that's very difficult for Muslims to do, because it tears up the whole family and destroys their social, you know, a lot of Muslim people are this tight-knit group, can be. Once they know who God is, they do whatever the risk is. You know, if they're going to die, they want to go to heaven. So they can't just go back to the way that their life was before they knew Jesus is God. So pray to God, because one thing that the wealthy elite whose fortune shaped the fates of nations, and anyone who does globalist writings, is they don't want you to pray to Jesus and ask for help, because that's who's against them, who's against the evil that they do, those whose fortunes shape the fates of nations. They only want you to have God if it's in a distorted way, so that technically and legally that your prayers to God aren't, you know, like, they want to divorce you from being able to pray to God for help against them. So He said, come to me as little children. So it doesn't matter where you're at in life. I'm telling you to pray to God. The strategy is divide and conquer. They want men and women kept away from each other, and they want us, you know, stay 6 feet apart. How deep do they bury a person when they bury him? They bury him 6 feet underground. How far apart did they tell us to stay from each other? 6 feet apart. Stay 6 feet apart. We don't want your torsion fields interacting with each other. In fact, we don't want you guys talking about torsion fields until we figured out how to manipulate you so that you can know about torsion fields. Like when they lie to us about chemtrails in the sky and say you're crazy for believing in that. And then they're like, well, we have a thing called geoengineering, and yeah, totally, we're using it. And we're going to keep calling it climate change, and we're going to make it inhospitable for you to live down here, to push mankind to a point where wherever the people are, they say do something about this, and they're like, okay, you're going to live in a pod, you're going to eat the bugs, you're going to own nothing, and whether you love it or not, you're going to love it because you're going to tell us that you do. You're going to tell us that you love Big Brother, which is the whole point of that story. That's all they're doing. They're bullying us through money. The World Economic Forum is that we're being bullied through that and saying, oh, there's nothing to do. Oh, look, they brought the value of silver and gold down, and look at who everybody's supposed to hate. They're setting up some kind of, they don't want us to have God's revelation. They want to try and usurp that with their manufactured version of times of tribulation. They're like, okay, we'll do it, but we're going to do it our way and to lead us astray. Why don't you be Roman Catholic? How about this? Why don't you forget about sect of Christianity, whether it's Mormon? Just pray to God. Like, be a follower of Jesus Christ and say, maybe I don't know where I go to church. Maybe I need to go to a new place. Maybe their faith is dead here. Maybe you want to try and mix it up at your church and get kicked out, probably is what's going to happen. Maybe you'll have some effect. Maybe you'll be able to reach them, because it seems like what's happening in a lot of Christian churches is pretty stale. And people that are getting results in church together as a group are probably being kind of quiet about it because they're really getting results, and it's not what you see when you look out there in the world. So what is one to do? Pray to God every morning at noon. Remember, Prophet King David said he prayed 3 times a day. So then Muhammad's trying to make up his religion, stealing stuff that other people believe. And he says, oh, well, they pray 3 times a day? Well, we pray 5,000 times a day then. And they're like, Muhammad, that's not really going to work. Or the demons told him, that's too, you're not going to get people to follow you. Nobody has 5,000 times a day to pray. All right, that sounds like praying without ceasing. But, if you're doing it because of what Muhammad said, who married and who had sex with 9-year-old little girls, then maybe that's not of God. So he's like, okay, fine, then pray 5 times a day. You gotta pray 5 times a day. No, just take it up with Jesus. That's who God is. I mean, don't the Muslims agree that Jesus is the one that's going to judge everybody? Maybe you want to, pray to the judge, who is God, the only begotten Son of the Maker of all things, who is God. Maybe you want His Spirit to rest upon you, like it's written in Isaiah 11:2. I pray that your spirit, pray this for yourself. This is from Isaiah 11:2, but modify it. Say, Lord, I want for me what's written in Isaiah 11:2. I pray that your Spirit would rest upon me. I pray for a spirit of wisdom and understanding. I pray for a spirit of might in your counsel. I pray for a spirit of knowledge and fear of you. And I pray that I would delight in this fear of you, Lord, because He likes that when we reference things from the Bible, when we pray. I think that, I don't know that God told us to pray the Psalter, but it does help us to look to prayers in the Psalter. If you want to pray big and you want to pray for the world, Psalm 53, Psalm 25, and so many more. There's a lot of prayers in the 60s into 70s of, the times that we're in now, where people are crying out to God and praying, not just for ourselves, but for others. I don't even think it's wrong to look at things in the Psalters where someone like Prophet King David is praying to God on his behalf. You can change that. I don't think it's against God, so long as you mean it. You're not changing the word of God. It's Psalms in the Psalter. They're prayers to God. But I do say, instead of just you praying for yourself, you can say, please, Lord, help us. Please, turn them back, send them away. We are poor and needy. We're being persecuted. And you use this, say, Lord, I'm praying Psalm 25, but I want to include everybody else in it too. Those who have found you, those who are like me, who are seeking you, who have found you, who want the relationship to grow deeper between you and I. But also for those who will come to you, who haven't yet, and then pray it for all the world. I like Psalm 25. It's one of my favorite prayers. I think it's called Prayer for All Mankind. But, in the prayer you say, help me, and do this for me, and for me. And it does include other people, but I'm saying, if you look at prayers where instead of I, you can say we, us, and just get into the habit of that. I don't think that it's wrong. Maybe a clergy will tell you not to do that, but that doesn't mean anything to me. Whatever I say, I'm going to be held accountable to every word. So when I read things in the Psalter, and if I change Psalm 91 to not just be praying about me, but to say us, I don't think, you have to think, what does God think about me doing that? All right? I don't know that He told us to pray the Psalter, but it's in there, and I think it's a tool for us to use, not only in a way that God would teach us to pray, but to see how men of the past prayed. Psalm 90, Psalm 91, they're both good. I don't think it's wrong to include other people. Psalm 23, you can pray that for yourself. You should. It seems like the demons hate Psalm 23 and Psalm 91, but I think you could change it to include other people. I think God likes it when we don't just include ourselves, but when we pray for others. I think sometimes our prayers for others have more effect than the prayers that we have for ourselves and the things that we want. Even though I'm not telling you not to pray, for things for yourself and for your loved ones and your small pond of people that you care about. But I also say pray big. What do you got to lose? What do you got to gain? I myself can do nothing, but with God's help all things are possible. You want that faith that moves mountains. So pray to God. I think it's criterion. I think it's most important. Because if you want to obey that first commandment to love God above all else, you have to pray to God and ask for help and see what He has for you. He has gifts. And, you know, two things. Be more like Jesus. What would Jesus do? Ask yourself that. If you're going to have a mantra, what would Jesus do? Take that around with you in all situations. And if you wouldn't do it, don't do that thing. Pray to God. Love God above all else. Helps you love your neighbor as yourself. And read the Bible because it's His Word. If you want to get to know Him, if you really want friendship with God, which He wants with us, you got to read the Bible. You got to read His story. You've heard it said like this. People say His, like it's capital H-I-S. His story, which would be 2 S's. But you know what I mean. History is His story. There's no her story. That's an individual in our lives. That's, you know, a woman has her story. But we all need His story, capital H. So read the Bible, and it will bring you closer to Him. You want to know God, we have to read the Bible and make it, fit it into our lives. You have to fit it into your life. And no excuses. I know what it's like to read the Bible and feel this spiritual oppression coming down on me. It happened for a long time. Every time I went to read the Bible, I would get tired. And I could feel like a physical pressure pushing down on me till I'm just like resting my head. And I'm like, Lord, help me. Every time I try to read the Bible, I get sleepy. Well, we got a lot of demons. I think people on this planet are lousy with demons, like fleas on a mangy hound. And there's a lot of people down here, and we're preyed upon, and there's a lot of demons. So do not fear, do not become dispirited. Pray to God and ask Him for help. It's the most advanced technology that's ever going to be made available to mankind. Period. Bar none. Take it to the top. Amen.
We're gonna need a little precipitation.
This is a climate control station.